Hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Uptin, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today. Very excited to be talking about the future of journalism, particularly as it comes to short form video. I have a lot of things I want to share, but please think of your questions because I'm going to speak for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have about 15 minutes for questions and answers. So very excited to be here with you. A little bit about me. I'm currently in Paris right now. I'm based between California and Dubai, but I'm currently in Europe for a few weeks. I'm in Paris, and I'll be actually in Berlin on Thursday night. So looking forward to being in Germany for a few days.
Recording in
This
progress.
is a presentation by the NAS Academy, where we teach people about everything from crypto, NFTs, and of course, content creation. My name is Uptin. I make videos about tech, money, and cultures. Over the past 2 years, I've amassed more than 1 million followers through social media, particularly Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And I'm excited to show you how I did it, how my brain thinks when I create content, particularly because I come from traditional media. I spent 6 years working at CNBC. So 4 years I was in New York City, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But overall, what I'm going to cover today is my story. Then I'm going to go over the different formats. So how I think about TV versus YouTube versus TikTok. And then I'm going to give my advice for best practices, and then we'll have time for questions. So with that, first is my story. So I joined CNBC about, 8 years ago now. I joined as a news associate working on the live show out of New York, working on one of the live shows out of New York. And then after a few years working in New York, CNBC transferred me to Singapore. So I did a one-way flight to Singapore, and I began to be an on-camera reporter doing live television. Then they asked me to launch their YouTube channel. I didn't know much about YouTube. It wasn't that exciting to me, but I did it nonetheless, and I fell in love with it. I realized the power of creating videos on social meant that a video you create today can be seen and will be seen 6 months from now, versus live TV, you are limited to whoever is watching you at that time and whoever has a subscription to your channel, right? Versus YouTube, anyone with an internet connection can see your content for years and years to come. So it was very rewarding to me. But then I left CNBC after about 4 years working on their channels. We built our audience to 1 million followers, had partnerships with Facebook and Snapchat, but it was time for me to go on my own. So in October 2020, I launched my channels with 0 subscribers. And then about a year and a half later, I passed the 1 million mark between the platforms. So this is me, as you can see on the upper right, this was me doing the traditional television. And then on the lower left, you'll see me doing the Facebook live stream, interviewing guests, and things like that. Just want to give you guys a sense of what our YouTube channel looked like. So these are some of the videos I did. Went to China's tech campuses, Singapore's airport, and the world's fanciest Starbucks. So I was doing videos in line with the CNBC content, which is economics, business, finance, but doing it in a more next generation way, vlogging, connecting with my audience in a more intimate way than you would see on TV. Now, fast forward to today, these are some of my platforms. So most of my followers and audiences on Facebook as well as TikTok. And I was written up in Business Insider a couple months ago for kind of the pivot that I made from traditional journalist working at CNBC to being an independent video creator. And just want to share the numbers that I've seen over the past year and a half. And to be quite honest, it really does shock me that, on Facebook, I went from 1,000 to 750,000 in about a year and a half. And it does shock me, but I'm going to tell you why I think it happened and what the takeaways are that you can all use in your practices as journalists. So with that, I'd like to move into section 2 and talk about format. So when we tell a story, at the end of the day, we're journalists, right? So we'll tell a story in print if it makes sense to tell it in print. We'll tell it on TikTok if it makes sense to TikTok, TV, right? We're hopefully a lot of us are used to playing, wearing a few hats. But I want to show you the most important thing to think about when you're shifting from, let's say, a TV package to a digital video. So when we think about a TV package, I'm going to actually share it with you. So this was a story I did. I'll give you a quick brief. This was a company that was essentially tracking your every move. So let's say you walk into a Zara store, they know based off of your phone, because you're letting some apps track you, know that you're at that store. They don't know your name or your information, but they have a profile on you, right? This company is working with stores like Zara and tracking your every move and then selling that to stores like Zara so they can target you online. It's like, oh, we know that you tried something on at Zara, but you didn't make it to the fitting room, so let's serve you an ad. So this was a video I did, and I did this video across platforms for TV as well as for YouTube, and I want to show you the difference.
Is it a little bit creepy? We've been trying to figure this out.
Well, it's a bit of both, I guess, and it depends on who you ask, Nancy. But what's allowing retailers to do now is track which customers, say, went to the fitting room but didn't quite make it to the cash register, and from there, send them a targeted ad on, say, Facebook or...
So that's, I'll leave it there, but that's what the story looked like on the traditional TV platform. How did I convert that for YouTube? Here you go.
In this Armani store in Hong Kong. Then your friend calls. You answer the phone and leave. Say you're shopping in this Armani store in Hong Kong. Then your friend calls. You answer the phone and leave the store. For Armani, you're a lost customer. But then the next day, you're sitting at work looking at your phone and you get an Armani ad reminding you of your visit from yesterday. Wait, what happened here?
But I didn't give any information. I didn't register my name. I didn't register for an app.
If you have a smartphone, your phone is constantly sending.
All right, so there you go. So as you can see, it's very informal. I think I did a couple stand-ups. As you can see, the stand-ups, I'm in a fitting room.
Smartphone in China.
And I'm talking in a very fun, relatable way. I'm literally holding my phone and talking. And this was something I did as early as, I would say, 2018, maybe even 2017. I had an iPhone 7 and I would film my videos in selfie mode. And CNBC would use those on TV, which was crazy. An iPhone 7, no lighting, no mic, nothing. Right now, I have an iPhone, 13, and I use a microphone and stuff. But I still primarily shoot on iPhone. And so what I like to tell journalists is, if it was good enough to air globally on CNBC, an iPhone 7, 5 years ago, then whatever you have in your pocket should be good enough for any of your storytelling needs. In fact, I would argue that you are more powerful filming a story with your phone in your pocket than you are with an expensive camera or any DSLR, because this is relatable. Selfie mode on your mobile is relatable. This is how our friends talk to us. So this is how journalists should talk to us on YouTube, on TikTok. It's relatable. All right, and I'll answer more questions about that idea in a little bit, but I just want to move on. So the formats, as you guys saw, the TV package was the traditional, reporters in a suit, yada, yada, yada. And then YouTube was fun. It was stand-up-y. It was relatable. And now we're going to talk about TikTok. TikTok is, when I say TikTok, I want everyone to think of short vertical videos, because Instagram Reels is huge now. YouTube launched its first new product in 15 years called YouTube Shorts. So whether you're into TikTok or not into TikTok, erase that word for the next 30 minutes, because when I say TikTok, I mean short vertical videos that can be used on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat for that matter. All right. So I want to show you, this is my proud moment. So I did a documentary about the Lebanon currency crisis. And I didn't mean to put DW News in here, but if you search it on YouTube, this was my video, and it surpassed Vice, it surpassed CNN. And this felt very cool to me, because my first year as an independent journalist on YouTube, it was very much of a what am I doing? Can I actually make this work? And then when I saw the YouTube algorithm pick this one up and get, over 1.7 million views, I realized, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. And that kind of gave me the momentum to keep going. Now, this documentary, if you do end up looking it up, this was shot on a DSLR mostly. And I think YouTube does reward that. So, when we talk about YouTube, I think DSLR and fancier equipment is nice. There's still some times where I'm holding the camera, talking in selfie mode with the DSLR. But when it comes to TikTok, and especially TikTok, but Reels, Shorts, all that, it's very important that you film, I would say, on your phone, and you film in selfie mode. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about some best practices. The first one is to make it personal. One reason why I left CNBC is because I realized in our 4 years, we were a 10-person team spread between London, Singapore, Hong Kong. And in our 4 years, we amassed about 1.5 million followers across platforms. while people like Nas Daily, Drew Binsky were amassing 5, 10, 15 million followers. They were single individuals with a DSLR, right? Traveling the world with their backpack. And they were building a much bigger audience than a news network. Why is that? Because they were a person. People want to connect with a person. And if you ask me personally what I think about, TikTok, I think the only two news organizations that I can think of that are doing TikTok correctly, I think some of you probably have seen them, is Washington Post. They hired this guy to just essentially run the TikTok account when TikTok first started to explode in 2020. And notice in almost every thumbnail, you see him or you see one of his colleagues. So it started out with just him, and then they've expanded it to be 2 other people on his team. So this is one that really understands the TikTok format. And then the other one, I genuinely love this account, DW Berlin Fresh, because, and notice what's the first thing you see in every thumbnail? It's a person. It's a young, relatable, fun. I genuinely know, I've been following this account for over a year now. And I'm not sure, I'd love for someone to tell me, maybe at some point, are these all like full-time reporters? Is it the social media team? Like, I don't know. I don't really, as a consumer, I don't care. I just enjoy their content. The reason this content works, and I think the reason this account has been so successful over a lot of other news accounts, is because it's personal. People join Facebook, TikTok, YouTube to connect with another person. They do not join to connect with a brand, and they don't even join most of the time to connect with a media network or a news network. So the more personality we can bring into every video, the better. And it usually happens through one person telling the story. I guarantee you, if you took out the person and just did like voiceover, like this was a great video about the drinking age in Europe versus the US, right? You could easily do that as a voiceover video. It would not get 2.5 million views the way, this amazing journalist or video creator kind of brought some personality to it and fun to it. So the second one I'll share is to chill out a bit. I think a lot of times, especially I see when people go from TV to digital, they're really too formal, especially if they've been doing live TV for years. It's like, it's really hard to kind of tone down that authoritative reporter voice and go from that, today we're following da 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 da, versus like, today I'm following da 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 da, right? It's really important to talk as if you're talking to a friend. Why? Because on TikTok, somebody is scrolling and they're coming from their friends' videos, right? The number one thing people do on TikTok is not actually enjoy videos, it's try and avoid ads or corporate videos, right? So the second we see that it's like, ooh, this is a company, I'm going to swipe, right? So again, that's why we want to use iPhone because, or Samsung or whatever, our mobile phones, because that is much more relatable. That is much more relatable. And it sounds like a friend, is giving is talking to us rather than a news network or a company. Okay. So we want to absolutely be as relatable as possible. And then the third one is you must optimize the format to the platform. So this was the Lebanon currency crisis. My cold open was to talk about the Big Mac and how 2 exchange rates have emerged in Lebanon. And so if you go based on the official exchange rate, this just, Big Mac is $27, which is crazy, right? And so I did the exact same documentary, and me and my team optimized it for the platform, which in general, YouTube is YouTube, we all know. TikTok, I see a lot of companies, platforms, even individuals still putting on their YouTube dimensions onto TikTok. Never do that. You're not taking up the full real estate of the phone, right? You're only taking up 1/3 of the real estate of someone's screen. So they're not likely to be immersed in the story. And then for Facebook, you want to do either square, or lately I've been switching to 1080 by 1350, which is it's a rectangle. So it's a little bit optimized for mobile, but it's still quite nice if you're watching it on laptop. And that's because 80% of Facebook video views are now on mobile, which is great, but you don't want to go to you don't want to just completely go vertical because it's just not there yet, and still people enjoy on their laptops. So with that, I think I want to open it up to questions that are coming in. And I just want to leave you off by saying that it's a very, very exciting opportunity right now. I loved my time at CNBC, and I love media networks. I love journalism. I love journalists. And I want to see more, news organizations and traditionalists coming from the traditional formats immerse themselves into these newer platforms. I could have never imagined, honestly, 2 years ago that I would be able to single-handedly, get a TikTok account in Facebook with over 1 million followers. But I think that, and one last thing I'll say is, a lot of people still think like, oh, isn't TikTok for just dancing teenagers and silly videos? And in fact, no, right? When you have 1 billion people using this app, not all of them want to see silly, dumb content, right? There's actually an appetite for more intellectual content. It's all about supply and demand at the end of the day. So a lot of my growth came in 2020 when very few people were doing anything related to journalism or anything intellectual, right? It was a lot of like silly meme style videos and dancing. And I do some of that too. You've got to have fun. But for the most part, do not think of TikTok as a silly platform for dancing teenagers, because it's all about supply and demand. And if you have a good story to tell, chances are, there's a good place. It's going to find the audience on this platform. So with that, thank you. And yeah, we'll open it for questions.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Matt. I am also from NAS Academy. Nice to meet you all. I shall be facilitating the questions for Uptin. Okay, Uptin, the first question is from Miss Jimenez at University College Dublin and CNN Academy. She says that TikTok is on the rise as a new journalistic platform. So I'd like to know what Uptin would recommend to reducing dense topics into seconds or very short videos. How do you do that? How do you reduce the dense topics into short form content?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wish if I had longer, I would go into this. But so for that Lebanon documentary that you guys saw, about the currency crisis, that was an 8-minute video on YouTube. For Facebook, I broke it into 2, so about 4 minutes each. And then for YouTube, I think I broke it into maybe seven. I'm sorry, for TikTok, I broke it into 7 TikToks. So I didn't actually do much, but I did kind of pick the in and out to make it tell a story. For instance, when I was talking about the 2 currency exchanges, I talk about, this hamburger would cost you $2 at the unofficial exchange rate and $20 at the official. So that's a montage, right? That becomes a montage that was maybe 40 seconds in the YouTube video. That montage becomes its own TikTok. Here's, Lebanon has 2 currency crises right now. Boom, that's it. And then, so you want to find little chapters or little themes within each like longer video, and then you could easily break them out into TikTok. And then the other thing I would say is, you just have to, it's like the same thing when your editor gives you a word count limit for an article, or you have 4 minutes for a segment on live TV, same thing, right? Now you're trying to do a story in 30 to 60 seconds, like you just have to pick what's important. And I think that's one thing, the best thing journalists are good at is taking dense topics and breaking them down into simplicity. So kind of think of it. Another thing I wanted to actually say is like, a lot of times TV producers, the hook is so important in your TikToks, that first 2 or 3 seconds, and your YouTube. But in TV, not so much. In TV, we always felt like we had a loyal audience sitting and watching us, right? So I remember one of my colleagues at CNBC did a news package about luxury cinemas in South Korea. And, the hook was, do you ever get tired of sitting at home, watching Netflix and watching YouTube and just, ordering pizza to your house? Well, now you can get out of the house and live a luxury experience, right? You would never write that script for YouTube, and especially not for TikTok or Facebook. You need to get right to the good stuff at the beginning. Nobody wants to watch, that kind of generic hook on TikTok because you're competing with their finger, right? Instead, you cut straight to it. This luxury cinema in South Korea is $70 to see a movie, but here's why it's worth it, or here's why some people are using it, or here's why it's so luxurious, or here's why it's so expensive, right? You want to present something interesting. And then a lot of times I like to ask the question, so is it worth it? So why are people flocking to this luxury cinema? So we want to, essentially what we're doing is trimming the fat, right? That might've been a 2-minute TV package, which still is not that long, but we trim the fat and then just give the good stuff on a shorter video. And it takes practice. But it's possible. You can talk about anything. I talk a lot about currencies in less than a minute. You just have to decipher what do I want to leave the audience with, and what do I have to save, other content for the next video.
Okay, thank you, Uptin. The next question is related to this. Miss Amina Aoun from Karlsruhe International University would like to know, short form journalism might imply that information sometimes goes missing in the process because you've only got a short time to report. Do you think that's true? And if so, like, how can that be avoided?
Well, it's a huge concern of mine, right? It's like, you know, and it's unfortunate that, especially in the US, the whole, you know, fake news, you know, became a term because I believe that news organizations in, you know, Germany, in the US, Canada, UK are really, really, you know, good for the most part, right? Like we have these sets of values and morals that we're driven by. And it's unfortunate that, you know, people do question that. So I think it's up to each of us individually to make sure we're giving things context. But on the other side of that, you know, the nice thing about comments is that people will hold you accountable. You know, people will hold you accountable. I did a video about San Francisco and how it's really going through like a very, very difficult time, like a record amount of vacant office vacancy, homeless, you know, it's just really a unfortunate situation right now. And people will comment like, I was just there last week, this isn't true, right? They'll say things like that. And it's like, okay, you know, but then people will say, well, no, it is really bad. My car got stolen. So I think a lot of that comes down to the citizen journalism, like everyone has an opinion, and it's great that comments are being used. But at the same time, you know, me and coming from a CNBC, you know, trained background, I also will mention that. I mean, you make a great point because like in the YouTube video, I did mention that. I'm like, you know, so, like, hold on, there's a lot of bad stuff happening, but like, let's see, you know, some people I interviewed here in San Francisco are saying the city's actually improved. And of course I include that in the YouTube, but you're right, like on TikTok, there wasn't much time. So it is a challenge, and I don't know the answer to that, you know, now that I'm speaking out loud, like how do we make sure that we're giving everything the right context? But I think it's kind of it's up to each of us to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure we're not exaggerating. I stood by every single part of that video, even dividing it up, even if you just saw the first minute. I stood by that because I recorded it, I documented it, I interviewed people, and I don't have an agenda, right? I don't have any agenda whether San Francisco does great or not. I want it to, but you know, I'm here to just document as a journalist does. So I think it's an interesting question, and I think we're going to see that question evolve over the next year or two. But in the meantime, the people in the comments are actually, even the negative comments, you know, I appreciate a lot of times because they hold me to, you know, questions and make other people converse. So yeah.
Nice, thank you very much, Uptin. And one final question for you, coming from Miss Leonia Marr at DW. She says, TikTok has been known to have some of the most intrusive algorithms, and data is being consistently accessed by unauthorized parties, which I think you actually covered in one of your videos. How can we use TikTok constructively, but still being aware of these dynamics? Do we need to be careful?
Well, that's a good question. I think that it's something that is going to be explored more and more in the next 6 months, because I just read, you know, that even though TikTok, I think, is essentially headquartered in Singapore, data was being accessed by, you know, their offices in China. So I think, you know, honestly, as a journalist, it doesn't concern me that much. I think it's more a question for governments. Like, you know, the US government needs to assess this, and if it sees it as a risk to its citizens, then it needs to ban the platform, right? It's kind of like, I just kind of shrug my shoulders, to be quite honest with you, and say, okay, like let somebody else deal with that. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't share my location and stuff like that on TikTok. So I think there's certain things that we as individuals can do with all platforms, not just, you know, Chinese-based ones or anything like that, but that we want to do to protect our privacy. But everyone has a different threshold for what they're willing to give and what they're willing to get. I mean, at the end of the day, all these platforms, they're free. And I actually get paid by them, right? Every month I make my revenue comes from Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So so for me, I see it as okay, but that's a personal you know, opinion, right? Not as a journalist. As a journalist, I could argue both sides, and I could see why there are concerns around that.
Okay, thank you very much, Uptin. Those were the last of the questions. So if you want to have a final word before you say goodbye to the audience, then now is the time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, my last point would be to a couple things. I think for those of you who are interested in becoming active on TikTok, whether it's for your company's account or your own personal account, the biggest barrier to entry I hear from people is I don't feel so comfortable talking on front of camera, right? Especially like I was in Paris this morning and I'm just talking to myself. And, 2-3 years ago, I would have been mortified doing that, right? But now I'm very comfortable with it and it's become second nature. So how did I get to that level? Practice, 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 practice. It's like, if you want to learn how to surf, you can watch YouTube videos, you can read a book, but the only way to really learn how to surf is to go swim out in the ocean, get knocked over a bunch. So I encourage people to talk on camera, get comfortable talking on camera, because it will really, really, really differentiate you from the noise from the other people. The second you can start like a video with just talking to someone, people feel so much more connected to you and engaged rather than a voiceover or, like using a tripod and being super formal reading a script, right? We don't want to do that. So how do you become more comfortable on camera? One hack that I like to give people is to start using the close friends feature on Instagram. If you're not already, you can pick like 2 or 3 people that are in your close friends. So anytime you send a story to your Instagram story, you can say, send to everyone or just close friends. So start sending stuff to close friends, and those stories that you send should be you talking about anything. It doesn't matter. Today, I'm having a tea and I'm so hungry. I can't wait to have lunch with my friends. Today for dinner, I'm cooking this. This weekend, I'm doing that. It doesn't matter what you're saying. What matters is that you're training your brain and your hand and your voice and everything to get comfortable on camera, to feel confident on camera. And the only way to really do that is it's like rehearsal, right? You practice backstage and then the curtain opens and then you have an audience. So you need to be able to do that. Do it backstage. And then you'll start to see yourself becoming a lot more comfortable on camera. And the other thing I want to quickly say is post. Like I post 3 TikToks a day, pretty much no matter what. I don't see it as work. I have fun doing them. I really enjoy them. And the only way to get better is quantity, right? So don't worry about the perfect video. Set a commitment to saying, I'm going to post 3 little mini documentaries a day about interesting people I meet in Germany or whatever, or interesting tech stuff happening in Berlin. Whatever your niche is, do it, commit to it, and have fun, because people can tell if you're having fun or not. So thank you all for having me, and enjoy the rest of the event, and hope to see you around the internet and in real life.
Thanks, everybody from NAS Academy, signing out. Thank you very much. Thank you.